That's another one. Yeah. And we keep going. Oh, back one. So they tested, so restorative justice is now an evidence-based, scientifically proven approach. So, and as I mentioned, it is a global movement. So we know that it works. And this is just a quick slide on utilizing it and the kind of, and depending on the individual client, how effective RJ is. So, and also the relationship that we build, a sense of trust and rapport within our RJ circle process. And the impediments to more pro-social thinking and behavior, this one builds on itself. Yes, can keep going. So these are all the things that prevent or are walls to actually have a young person move through the system and not reoffend. So as you can see, there's quite a number of things that affect individual youth's performance, and that is anything from family to criminal, like previous criminal offenses, to substance abuse, antisocial attitudes. So really, they're up against a big wall, and RJ is providing a step ladder, actually, to help them get over this wall. And what RJ isn't, it's not mediation, okay? It's not two different equal parties sitting down at a table. Well, if we keep going, I'll say RJ is not forgiveness. So forgiveness meaning that we do not require forgiveness on behalf of the victim, because how can you require forgiveness? Does it happen? Pretty much about 99% of the time, it's an organic process through utilizing the RJ circle. Also, we do not require the offender to say that they're sorry, to apologize. Again, people are, they look very quizzically at me when I explain that, but you can't force somebody to apologize. Oh, you can, I guess. Say you're sorry. But it's not organic, and it's not intrinsically felt by the individual. Then it's not something that we can force. So it's not, we do utilize community service sometimes within what we call our contractual agreements that arise out of the RJ process, but it's not community service. So and it's not actually a replacement for the legal system. There are many cases that are inappropriate for restorative justice, and those are usually anything that's a type of domestic abuse or also a sexual abuse. So inappropriate, and we do know that majority of young people's cases that, maybe involve drugs and alcohol or, burglary, theft, graffiti, things like that, those are very much utilized as RJ cases, and that the young people and the victims benefit from. So RJ is, as you can see from the circle, collaborative, responsive, and engaging. Everyone has a voice, everyone is treated with respect. It is founded on a set of values and principles, and as you can see, I think everybody was handed a bookmark, or we can distribute those before you leave, and that's actually something we provide to the students. We go into the schools and talk about restorative justice and peer mediation, and then they have an idea of what the 5 R's are relationship-wise to restorative justice. Okay? So, and here they are. So relationship, very important. Okay? Because basically crime is the breaking down of relationships. It's a violation of relationships within our community. And when we start our process, the offender and the victim are treated with the same amount of respect and level of empathy. We also move to, which is quite different, by the way, how we treat our criminals. Generally speaking, in the traditional justice system, there's a lot of dehumanization. It's degrading. It's very much focused on negative punishment, retributive justice. So then we go to the sense of responsibility and the ownership for the young person, moving along to repairing. How do you repair this relationship? What can you do? and both the victim and the offenders come in with ideas on how to repair the relationship. And then we go into reintegration. How do we get this young person reintegrated and connect to the community? Because the individuals who are alienated and disconnected are the ones that we need to worry about, the ones that can be most violent or create acts that just are not connected or disconnected from society. So we do have trained volunteers, and I set up here as volunteer initiator. We have so many wonderful volunteers. Our programs, most RJ programs, are staffed by volunteers who have been trained as facilitators to be able to handle a conference, a victim offender conference. So we do have the victim, number one on top. We have the trained facilitators ready to create a safe place for dialogue. We have community members that actually show up because they're engaged because they represent how the community is affected. And we have the offender. Okay, so we have all that together actually this is a triangle, but it's within the circle process. So you'll see, does the process address harms, needs, and causes? And we just keep going, it'll pop up. Nope, back to the, yeah, and then just hit. Okay, it should just go around. This may not be working. Okay, so does the process address harms? Are offenders encouraged to take responsibility? Yes. Are the key stakeholders involved? That's the victim, their family members, anyone that was affected, community members, and there's an opportunity for dialogue and participatory decision making. We don't tell the offenders what they need to do. They come up with that within the circle context. We are not judges. We don't stand above them. We have a very equal power. There's no power differential, and we basically say, what do you think would make it right for this person? You broke Mrs. Jones' window. How does that make it right? What can you do? Well, I can mow the lawn for her, and I'll get a job, and I'll pay her restitution, and does she need an apology letter? Because I will write that down. And they will decide, and then the victim will say, you know, I don't really need the apology letter because you're right there in front of me, and I take it that it's a sincere apology. But, you know, yes, I will need snow shoveling. I will need, you know, some help, and I would like the money to pay for the window. Okay, so then that's agreed upon, and it's written out in a very detailed contract, which after everyone in the circle signs, our program, Full Circle, is responsible for monitoring that and seeing that that contract is actually carried through to completion. Next slide. Okay, so again, victim-centered means holding the care and concern for the victim. Okay, so since it's a very, very limited role the victim has in the traditional process, we make sure that we provide what they need. That's paramount. And just really quick, because I know I don't want to take time away from your time, but this is basically how we have a linear description of how you can utilize restorative justice, and there's different ways, including going to the schools of restorative language, or you could do community members, high-risk victim offenders. There are many different ways to practice restorative justice. And we keep going. So what does RJ do for the offender? As you can see, they directly express the remorse. They respond directly. They answer questions from the victim. The victim wants to know, was I targeted? What did I do wrong? And honestly, most of the cases I've seen, it's been very random. Your door was unlocked. You know, your car was unlocked in the street at 1 a.m. Okay, so it made the victims feel safer that they didn't have young people out there targeting them. They understand how their crime may have destroyed or devastated the lives of their victim or survivor. We do restorative justice in the cases of accidental death, in the cases of murder, in serious high-level criminal offenses. And the individuals who are left behind in certain cases, the victims' families and things, they need to hear what happened. And they need, because otherwise they're just left unknowing. And it's a special form of torture that can be alleviated by meeting with the actual offender. And they give voice to their feelings of guilt and shame. Big, huge, okay? Next. And for the victim, again, as I mentioned, questions answered, how the crime impacted their lives, they get to be heard. Personal sense of justice. What do you think it would take to make this right? What would be fair? further personal healing process. The mental health benefits to this, everyone, it's so significant. The sense of peace individuals have after this, and to experience a sense of empowerment by having a voice. And we go. Okay, some of these things are not coming up. It must be a PowerPoint issue. But basically that was, can anyone guess what the rate of recidivism, the rate of reoffense within a traditional justice system is? For a young person, what do you think a percentage would be? Okay, so in the United States criminal system, if a young person offends, they have an 80 to 90% chance of reoffending, which to me is unacceptable, okay? So restorative justice, you bring in that process, you humanize the justice system, you give them a sensible approach on how to repair the harm, that drops down to between 10 and 30%. Okay, pretty significant. What our goal is to have all juvenile crimes addressed in a way that they will utilize restorative justice first, and then if they are unsuccessful in completing their contract, then they will move into the traditional system. So offenders quote, they're very thankful because getting a record as a juvenile, especially for like a felony in the United States, is significant. It reduces their chances of getting into colleges, universities, reduces their chances of actually getting into the military. They will not be able to own a weapon or a firearm, which I think personally is a good thing. But it's very, very limiting, and so we try and help the young people avoid a criminal record. And one thing we always say within our specific restorative justice group and our volunteers is that, we are being the change we wish to see in the world, inspired by the wonderful Gandhi. I love being in his homeland and birthplace. Thank you. And what we're saying is that every circle, every youth, every victim that we're able to work with really actually benefits from restorative justice in a way that we feel that we are implementing a change that needs to happen in this world. And I would like to express my gratitude once again for all of you here, and thank you very much.
Good morning. Normally, legal systems are not really a matter of interest for many, which I can see. But I personally feel every person must know their rights. If you are not aware of your rights, how will you assert it? When something happens to you, then you start running around for legal help. But if you know of your rights, then you don't even need to run anywhere. You just tell them, I know my right, and that will take care of yourself. In India, a lot of people are harmed by various sectors, whether it's builders or doctors, and all the manufacturing defects in whatever you buy